Are you spending too much time managing your CAD files and information? Are PDM systems too expensive and complex to manage? In this video, I'm going to show you how you can easily manage your CAD file versions, data, and information with Vistapoint PDM so that you can be more productive and focus on creating better products. Let's get started. Once you get the login credentials from an admin sent to your email, you can log in with your username or password. Then you will see the workspaces. The workspaces are containers to manage your projects, customers, or your products. So you can have your folders, user permissions contained into one workspace, and then you have your whole entire project in this workspace. So here we have a workspace already, but if you don't have one, you can create a workspace. You can give it a name. You can give it a description, and then you can select from a template. Click Save. Then it will take you to the workspace. So here I have my folder structure here, which I can also edit. If I right-click, if I click on the folder, I can right-click. I can add more folders here, edit, copy, or move. If I'm an admin to the workspace, I can click on Workspace Settings. And here I can see more details, description about the workspace. I can select what type it is, give it a status, and then I can also manage the users for this workspace. So on the users in the left side, if I click on the users icon, and then I click on the bar in the middle where I can then select from the users or user groups. And then I can assign a role to that user group in the drop-down. And then click Save. I can go back to the workspaces. Now I have my new workspace, and to navigate to the workspace, I can click on the name or I can double-click the row. To go back to my workspaces, on the top here under Workspace, I can select Workspaces. If I go into the workspaces, I can select the workspace that I already had, and here I can upload files, so then I can see my bolt here. I can hover over it to get a preview. I can turn the image on or off. And I can see the lock status if it's checked out or locked. I can add it to my favorites, add it to my watch list. I can see a status, the lifecycle state, revision and version. Or I can see more information if I click on the column chooser. And then I can also add columns for all the index fields that I assign to this part. I can see more information if I click on Preview. I can then see that information on the right, like status, lifecycle state. I can add a description. And I can add details like part number, cost, project name, category, and other information which I can configure in the admin panel. I can also then see related references, where used, versions, and activity. So the first thing you want to do is import all your files into Vistapoint. So to do that, you want to install the desktop app. So under Apps, click on Vistapoint Desktop. It will then download the desktop application to then install. Once that's downloaded, run the installer and follow through the prompts. You also need to copy this connection information. So copy this to your clipboard. Once you've installed the desktop application, you can then open Vistapoint app, and it will take you to the login screen. Then you need to click on Options, select Active, add a name, for example, your company name, and then paste in your connection information. Click OK. Enter your username and password. And then log in. You can go back to the web app. You can also then go to apps and integrations and also download and install any other add-ins that you might have access to. This is the Start menu, so I can access it at any time by going to Home and then Start. Here I have shortcuts to select a workspace, search for documents, manage your local work and the files you have checked out, go to any shortcuts to see what you have checked out, favorites, last used, or watching. And also for admin, you can manage configuration, where you can manage your workspace templates, your document templates, and your index fields. So there's a couple different ways you can import into Vistapoint, but the recommended is to go through MyWork. So if we click on MyWork, this will open up the MyWork tab. In MyWork, you have your workspaces that you have access to. So you can select a workspace, which then shows the files you have checked out for that workspace and any changes that you made to the files in that workspace. So you're going to want to select your workspace and say update the workspace and confirm. This will then download the files for that workspace to your local Vistapoint folder. So here under the C drive, Vistapoint local, we have our downloaded workspaces and we have the workspace that we just created. And I can navigate and see all the folders that I just created and were also in Vistapoint as well. So to upload files into Vistapoint, you can simply copy files into the folder structure of your workspace. So I will paste in a couple SOLIDWORKS files in here. And any changes will then upload in the changes area. I can select the changes and say check in. It will then open SOLIDWORKS to analyze the files and then upload them to Vistapoint. I can go back to the web version and I can go to our new workspace, go to the folder, and then I see my files. And I can see more information about the files. I can see the references. So I have the assembly here and the references in this assembly. And if I have more complex assemblies, I can select the drop down for multi-level to then also see the next level of references. You can then also see for the parts the where used, which will then show the assemblies that it's used in, and I can also click on the assembly name and it will open up in a new tab where I can then see that assembly. If you go over here on the right side, it shows an icon for a browser. Once I've downloaded the desktop app, I can then route these functions to call automatically to the desktop. So I can click the icon to then show the laptop. And then I can check out and call these functions to open up directly to the desktop app. So I can click on a file and then click open. It will then load the Vistapoint Assistant, which I can then log in. And then it will open up the file in SolidWorks. If I want to make a change to a file, it uses the checkout check-in process. So when I want to make a change, I check it out. It downloads to my local workspace area. I can make my changes, and it's also locked in the archive while I'm making my change so that no one else can work on the file at the same time. So if I want to make a change to an assembly or part in an assembly and also update the assembly itself, I can go to the part and click References to show the References tab, where I then can see the assembly and the part that I want to work with. And then I can say Edit, Checkout. We'll get a notification that these two files were checked out. And then I can also open the file that I want to make a change. It's now not read-only in my local workspace area. I can then make a change. I can then go to MyWork, and then I can see my changes, what I've checked out from this workspace, and then the changes that I made to the files in this workspace. So I can see the part that I have checked out and now what it looks like after I've modified it. I can click on a checked out file and double click to open. I can then save the assembly with the new part. Then I have my changes in my work area. I can select them. And for SolidWorks parts, I can also create neutral files. So under More, I can select Create Neutral Files, where I can then select for the file type, SolidWorks part, for example, I can select a step file, and for an assembly, I can also create a step file. For SolidWorks drawings, I can create PDF, TIFF, or DXF files as well. I can click OK, and then it will create the step files for these changes. Takes a couple seconds for the changes to update. Then I have my step files. And when I'm done with my changes and I'm ready to check it back in, I can select the changes, describe what changed, and then check it back in to Vistapoint. I can go back to Vistapoint and refresh, and now I have my step files as well, and I can also see the change that I made to the part. If I click on the file and click Preview, I can then go to the Versions tab, where I can then see the version that I imported and the newest version with my version comment. If I'm looking for a file, under Files, I can search, I can see what I have checked out, I can see my favorites, last used, or what's on my watch list. Or I can select and search by name in the top menu, which will then show all the files that have this name or similar. And I can also then search by advanced. So I can search by status, by lock status, what's checked out, or I can search by index fields, so labels that I have assigned to my documents, by clicking on index fields, selecting the document class, and then I can search by part number, by cost, by project name, or any index fields that I have customized as an admin. So I can then search by part number. Once I've found my file, I can see more information in the preview window, or I can select Go To, and it takes me directly to where that file is in the workspace. To share files with someone who has access to this workspace, I can click on the file and click the Share button, and then I will copy a link, and then I can send it to someone, and they can automatically open the file by clicking the link, and they can go in the browser, paste the link, and it takes them directly to that file. They can then go back to where that file is located by clicking on Open File Location. Similarly, for the desktop app, you can copy a link by going to Share, Copy Link. And for desktop links, you can also then go to the Start tab and say Go to Link, paste in the link, and it will take you directly to that file. To manage versions, we can see the version history under the Preview and the Versions tab. So here I can see my version history, and if I want to go back to a previous version, I can click on the row and then select Restore. We'll then confirm that I want to restore to the previous version, and then it will create a new version, version 3, of my restored version. So I can refresh, and then see that it went back to the previous version. If I'm ready to release a part, create a new revision, and set it as finalized, I can select a file, and under More, I can select Workflow, create a new revision, and since it's the first time that I'm setting this revision for this part, I can select if I want to use lettering or numbering. Then I can add a revision comment. I can set a status for the new revision to release, and I can also set a lifecycle state if it's in pending, if it's like under review, or if it's finalized to lock it for any edits. I can also set what I want to do with the archived revision. So if I want to archive the previous revision, and also if I want to set a status for the archived revision. I can click Submit and confirm that I want to set this part to finalized. That locks it in the archive. So you can only then create a copy or create a new revision from the finalized part. I then have my released, finalized set for this part and the new revision A. I can see previous revisions in the revision history under the Versions tab as well, so I can see my new I can see my new version and my revision, which is the current, and I can load previous revisions and see that it's archived. If you have any questions or want to learn more, please reach out in the link in the description below.